All right, so yeah, welcome everyone to our just our release webinar. Uh, yeah, so again, I'm Martin. I'm not Donnie. Um, and this is the IXUS 2023.4 release highlights. So it's our fourth release of the year. So in this presentation, I'll just go through the highlights of the stuff that has changed. And then obviously we can have some Q&A afterwards as well. And I'll do a quick demonstration in the modeler as well. Okay. So yeah, this is just the overview. So it's the modeler and manager version 4.9.0. And these are the highlights, but I'll just go through them now as well, each of them. Okay, so the first thing that we have added, so we've added a few additional content controls for the reporting services. In particularly the frequency band model that has been essentially split into a few different parts. So in the past, it was just one content control for that gave you the manufacturer, the model, and I think the model type as well. So now we've had it's now possible to have it in two separate columns. And we've also added frequency band ports, so that over here, that's essentially for the unified antennas. That's a very important section to have. So we're really trying to get this to a point where there's no post-processing necessary in this antenna table when generating the reports. Okay. Then the next thing is some optimization enhancement that we've done with specifically the interaction between the modeler and the manager. So the opening of CAD models as well as the saving of CAD models, the time for that should be reduced considerably. I did add a few examples of like the test cases that we've done to see the impact, and it is quite substantial. So mostly like 50% of the time, essentially 50% faster, I would say, on average, or better. So that should help a lot with some issues that we have been facing with, where you would get an error, a timeout error, with saving back to the manager. And there's a few related bugs that was also essentially resolved with this release. Okay. The next one is the 3D graph improvements as well as the geometry colors. So we now have the option to change the geometry color from the default brown color to something else. We do aim in the future to maybe add the possibility of doing like different parts of the geometry to being different colors. But that's still in our roadmap. And as well, the 3D graph, essentially adding the option to change the line weight as well as the graph color, depending on the background that you have, to make that a bit more visible. Okay, and then the next significant enhancement, I would say, is the additional exposure standard reference levels that can now be added, as well as with specific colors associated to it. I know especially the US market, it's an important feature for that market to have. So you can now have more than just the public and the occupational exclusion zone levels. You can now have additional ones like the 10x occupational, and the specific colors that is associated with each of those levels can now also be customized. Together with this, also we added the option to change the custom exclusion zone color as well, just so that if there's clashes, that can also be then adjusted. Yeah, and this also then obviously goes on to the lobe imprints. Okay, so then we've also made some improvements to the refinement process for the discrete environmental slices, as well as the 3D exclusion zones. So for the discrete environmental slices, essentially the results should be more accurate in edge cases, as well as in fact faster for most situations, since the meshing is done a bit more cleverly, or yeah, with this new release. And as well as with the 3D exclusion zones, there was a smoothing option that was now disabled to also result in a better accuracy of the 3D exclusion zone. Okay, so the next UI enhancement that has been done is essentially the calculation progress bar. So we've added a few messages there to just give feedback to the user to which process is currently ongoing, and as well as the antenna details dialog UI that's been a bit changed, just to make it a bit more readable in terms of, so when we added the additional ports to the UI, it did look a bit cramped, so that has now been changed. And that is all. So now I'll just go through a modeler demonstration. Okay, so yeah, here we have a CAD model. So this was simulated with FCC OET65, and so if we select this blue zone over here, this light blue, you can still now see that here on the left hand side is the general population, because this is not a custom zone. This is actually part of the exposure standard. And you also have then the occupational, which is yellow, and the 10 times occupational, which is red. And this then also goes with the lobe imprints as well. And you can then obviously adjust your environmental slices to have the same values as well. Then I'll just demonstrate quickly as well. So to make it a bit faster, I'm just going to disable a few of these antennas. If I click simulate, actually just go to the preferences first. So under preferences now, there's an appearance tab over here. So where you can set the custom exposure standard color. So at the moment it's white, set to white. So if we simulate this and we set the custom to, let's say, 20%, and we can then simulate. So here we can see the progress bar that now has a bit more detail of what the process is that's currently ongoing. And then we have the custom exclusion zone that now has been made a white color. And then if we, let me just put this in feet. And then we can do the low imprint as well. Let's not do that now. I think it's going to take some time to simulate. Then the 3D graph has also been changed. So you can now set the specific color for the 3D graphs. So again, in preferences, appearance. So at the moment it's set to blue, so we can change that to, for example, red, as well as change the line weight to make it a bit more visible, depending on the background that you are placing the graph on. Okay, I think that is the main stuff that can be demonstrated in the modeler. Oh yeah, the antenna details. So we go to the antenna details. So the only change that's been made here is so that this is a bit more readable, for example. Okay. Yeah, so the one thing that needed to mention regarding the additional exposure standard reference levels. So that's something that if you want to add that to your exposure standard, that's something that you can request from IXUS support, and we'll provide that or assist you to set that up. So it's not something that's in the UI, it's something that's built into the specific exposure standard that you have in your manager. For example, in this case, it was the OET 65, so that's something that's built into the exposure standard. But you can then obviously set up different exposure standard with multiple different reference levels. Okay. All right, and just as a reminder to everyone that you can obviously, if you need support, you can email us at support@ixus.com. But ideally, always it's better if you have any issues to log a support ticket on the help desk. It's very useful to keep all the attachment and everything in one place, and to keep track of how that is progressing. And you can also schedule a call with us via our Calendly link, and log features via the ideas section in the knowledge base. Yeah, that is it. Thank you very much.